What if something catastrophic happened to your business and you were shut down for a day or a week or 2 weeks? What's the single biggest threat to your business? Are you ready for it? We're going to talk about business continuity in this podcast episode. This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you eliminate chaos and maximize revenue. We're going to talk about business continuity. We're going to talk about some of the biggest threats to your business. What are the things that could shut you down? And even though they're short term, it could put you out of business if you're not careful. And then, are you ready for them? Do you have a plan? And we'll talk about how to get started with business continuity planning. First, I want to talk about a couple of resources that will help you eliminate chaos in your business. The first one involves project communication. If you lead a team, a project, or a company, you know that your job is to get the right information to the right people at the right time. And if you want to eliminate disputes or be in a position to win any sort of dispute, then you need to have an organized, searchable record of those communications. And one of the best ways to do that, one of the simplest ways to do that, is with field chat, because it's a text messaging platform specifically designed for construction sites. That's it. It is the ultimate text messaging platform for construction sites. And what it does is it automatically organizes all of your instant communications by project, giving you an organized, searchable history of all messages. It also integrates with text messaging, so it's easy to include the people on your team who maybe they are a little slow on the uptake or just refuse to learn new technology. Maybe they're trades or trade partners or subs that would just prefer to use text messaging rather than downloading something new. So here's what field chat means to you. It means accelerated progress, fewer mistakes, less rework, less chaos. It's going to improve profits, it's going to improve your bottom line, and it's going to cut down stress and aggravation for you, all by making your project communications more effective. So here's some good news. Field Chat is offering you, the Construction Leading Edge podcast listener, 15% off. And I forgot to mention, Field Chat also integrates with Procore and PlanGrid. They're a big player in the communication space. So go to fieldchat.com/edge, grab your account for 15% off. And frankly, even at full price, this is a no-brainer, but it's even better with 15% off. So go to fieldchat.com/edge, EDGE. Get your Field Chat account set up and see what it's like to have communications organized and searchable to free up more of your time. One of the other common things that I hear from construction business owners are questions like, how are the big contractors doing it? How are they growing? How are these guys buying new trucks and hiring more people? How are they staying out of cash flow trouble? What do they know that I don't? What are they doing that I'm not doing? Well, there are some things that growing, successful contractors do. It's not magic. This is not black magic. There are systems and processes and ways of thinking about business that they're using to grow their business. So I put together a free video series called The Secrets of Successful Contractors. Frankly, this is how the big companies do it. And there are some things that big companies do to become big companies and stay big companies that small businesses could really benefit from. I've worked inside of really large companies like Procter & Gamble and Jones Lang LaSalle and Duke Energy, and I've managed billion-dollar-a-year general contractors as an owner's rep, and I've seen how they work, and there are some things that they do that a lot of small businesses don't. So I put together a free video series called The Secrets of Successful Contractors that will help you understand that a lot of the things you're dealing with that you think are problems are really symptoms of underlying problems. There's also this hidden cost that's potentially, very likely, hammering your bottom line, and you don't even know it because it's not showing up on an invoice, it's not showing up on your bank statement, and a new way of thinking about your business that will help you achieve your goals, drive projects, and what I call schedule for revenue. So to get your free video series, The Secrets of Successful Contractors, all you have to do is go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/secrets. constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/secrets. You can get those free videos and get instant access to those. So now let's talk about some of the biggest risks, some of the biggest extinction level events for construction businesses. And some of these are huge risks that could just put you out of business, but then some of them are risks that could shut you down for a day or two. And maybe that's not such a big deal, but if you think about your operation, how much is a day of revenue worth to you? How much is a week? What if something happened and it shut you down for a week? It took you out of production for a week, and you had all of your overhead costs, all of your fixed costs, and you weren't able to work at all. How big is that number? So that's an important thing to understand. So let's talk about some of the biggest risks that you need to be aware of, and frankly, you need to plan for, and then we'll talk about how do you get started. If you have no business continuity plan, then I'll give you a way to get started doing this. It's not super complicated. And look, if you have insurance for your vehicles, or if you have life insurance, you have general liability, then you understand the importance of having plans and some sort of backstop in place if something bad happens. Well, what we're talking about is essentially putting a plan, an insurance policy, if you will, and plan that answers the question, what are we going to do when something happens to shut us down? So let's talk about some of the biggest threats, and I want you to think about, what are you going to do in case of these threats? Let's look at, let's say, your office operation, whether you work out of your home office or you have a separate office or your shop. What are you going to do in the case of a utility interruption? Maybe there's a blackout, an ice storm, power goes down, phones go down. What if your internet provider goes down? Do you have some sort of backup plan? If your power goes out for a couple of days, then all of your computers are shut down. Do you have, let's talk about power. First of all, if maybe there's a short-term power outage for a few hours, then you can get an uninterrupted power supply, a UPS, battery backup basically for some of your key systems. An emergency generator is a really good idea for your business. You can put in an emergency generator for under $10,000 and power up a pretty significant size office. What about your telecom, your voice and data system? If your IT system goes down, or if your voice and data provider is out because of some outage or a car knocks over a pole in your area, do you have some sort of wireless hotspot that you can use to power up your internet? What if there's a fire in your building? A company that I know of had, actually, this was a weird situation. There was a building across the street from their office, and the building across the street caught on fire, and the wind blew the fire across the street into their building and burned their office to the ground. All files gone. All computers gone. Everything in the building toast. So what would you do in case of a fire? Maybe it's a partial fire, but what if you lost everything in your office? So think about your file storage. Putting things in the cloud is a really good idea. Let's talk about inclement weather. If there's an ice storm, a hurricane, a flood, a tornado, whatever the case may be, some short term, maybe it's a couple of days, what are you going to do in the case of inclement weather? Where will your office staff go? Should they just stay home and work remotely? Should you go to a hotel room and rent a meeting room or rent a hotel room that's operational? What will you do? This is an important plan to have in place because when there's a power outage and everybody's calling and texting each other is not the time to ask, hey, what are we going to do? Have a plan in place. Be prepared. In the event of this, if there's a power outage at the office, here's what we're going to do. You're going to work remotely. We're all going to meet up at this place. Just have a plan. What if there's a security incident in your office? Active shooter situations happen all too often. What if a disgruntled employee shows up in your shop or in your office? What are you going to do? What if there's any sort of situation that arises and you need to contact emergency medical services? Are there directions posted? Does everybody who's in the building know how to get out of the building? Do they know how to respond to an active shooter situation? Do they know the address of the building so they can give that to somebody? Do they know what to do? Don't assume everybody knows how or when to call 911. So think about your office. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest areas that is a threat to business, and this is IT related, your information technology systems. Cyber attacks are a real thing. There are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people in the world who are actively trying to break into your systems. So are you prepared for a cyber attack? What if your website goes down? If you are generating leads through your website, then what are you going to do if your website goes down? Speaking of lead generation, if you're getting your leads from Facebook let's talk about Facebook. What if somebody were to hack your Facebook page or break into your ads manager somehow? Are you changing the password on these things regularly? Do past potentially disgruntled employees have access to your Facebook page? Could they log in and cause all sorts of problems? What if Facebook has an outage? Or maybe House or Angie's List. What if your lead generation source has an outage? What about your bank? If you use online banking, how are you protecting yourself from some sort of cyber attack? Are you changing the password often enough? Who has access to your online banking? Credit card processing. If you process credit cards, if you accept credit card payments, then what if that system goes down and you're suddenly not able to do that? What about key software? If you have a key integrated enterprise-wide system that you're using to run your projects, what if they have an outage? Are you backed up somehow? These are good questions to ask those service providers. How are you backing up my data? What happens? What's your downtime or what's your uptime? How often are you down, and then what happens when I'm down? Can I still operate? What do I do? And then let's talk about payroll. What about your payroll service, your payroll provider, your payroll software? What if there's an outage? Few things cause chaos, stress, and anxiety like your inability to cut payroll checks, okay? Next, let's talk about people. People are potentially one of the biggest risks when it comes to business continuity that you need to plan for. What if there's an injury to a key person, or worst case scenario, what if somebody dies? What if a key person dies or is sick or is unable to come to work? This could be, if you're a business owner, it's you. You are one of the biggest risks. What's going to happen if you get sick or you get injured or you don't wake up one morning? What happens to your business? Will they just close the doors, or will it be able to run without you? What if a key person, your general manager or your accounts payable person, is unavailable one day? What if they just suddenly quit? What if somebody decides, you just get a text message one morning and they say, Sorry, but I took another job. What if your project manager, your superintendent, your accounts payable person suddenly quits? What do you do then? Do you have a backup plan? What if there's an injury on a job site? What if somebody gets hurt? What will you do? I had a situation a few years ago where a superintendent was injured on the way to work, and fortunately, we had a plan. He wasn't able to come in, but the crew knew exactly what they were doing. They had access to all the keys, they had access to all the equipment, access to all the information that they needed, and they were able to just go right to work while John got his thumb sewed up that was injured on the way to work in some sort of freak dog bite incident. Really weird situation. One of the biggest risks with your people could be something you probably don't want to think about, which is fraud. What if your accounts payable person is creating fictitious accounts and siphoning money from your company to themselves? I have seen lots of stories in the last few months about people siphoning tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars away from companies. I've dealt with it. It could be on small scale where people are using company cards to get their nails done, to get their car worked on, to put fuel in their personal vehicle. It could be people using company cards to pay for vacations and make them look like work expenses to buy big flat screen TVs for their families. Or it could be on a large scale. There was a situation in my area where someone who was responsible for accounts payable and accounts receivable siphoned millions of dollars, somewhere north of $2 million over 10 years, and siphoned money away from the organization and sent it off to her romantic interest in a different state. That is a potential extinction level event. What if somebody got disgruntled, fell in love with somebody what if your accounts payable person either got disgruntled and took all your money, or they fell in love with somebody, some Nigerian prince, and they fell for a scam and they wired all of your money out of your account? What's going to happen then? And do you have controls in place to prevent that from happening? Let's talk about equipment. Here's a really simple one. What if somebody loses a set of keys that they lose the only set of keys to one of your trucks or a piece of equipment? Then what? Do you have spare keys? Where are they? How can people access them? It's a shame to have a $50,000 piece of equipment sitting and unusable because of a $5 set of keys that got lost. What if there's a breakdown of a key piece of equipment? If you have one, think about your most important piece of equipment or your most important tool that you use that you absolutely can't operate without. What if that breaks down? What do you do? What's your backup plan? What about theft? I've had a few unfortunate situations where trucks and equipment just disappeared. They weren't in the morning, the equipment wasn't where it was the day before. What do you do? What's the backup plan? Will you be able to rent it? Do you have a backup piece of equipment? Do you have somebody that you can borrow a replacement piece of equipment from? Who do you call? What's the process? Think about your key subcontractors or trade partners. One of the benefits of working with trade partners is you are outsourcing a lot of your risk to them, but you're also taking on some of their risk. What if any of these things we've talked about happens to them? That risk reflects right to you. So what if a key trade partner goes out of business or they have some sort of business continuity issue? What will you do? And then how do you monitor that risk. It's a good idea to keep tabs on some of your key trade partners to understand what's going on inside of their business, because it will affect you as well. And then let's talk about your supply chain, material suppliers. What if suddenly an account gets frozen and you can't buy materials from that one supplier that you buy all of your stuff from? Do you have an account set up with somebody else? Maybe their pricing's not as great, maybe their terms aren't as great, but you need a backup plan, right? What if a supplier suddenly gets bought out, or suddenly gets their doors padlocked by the bank, or they go into bankruptcy? What are you going to do then? So think about your suppliers, because when the doors are locked and you can't buy material is not the time to go come up with a backup plan. So there are some of the risks when it comes to your office, your information technology systems, your people, your equipment, your subcontractors, your suppliers, just to get you thinking about some of the big risks that could put you out of business, could shut you down for days, or could put you out of business and be an extinction level business continuity event. So here's how to think about it, all right? As you analyze it, here's how I recommend you think about it. Think about single points of failure. What are the single points of failure in your business? These could be people. It could be you. If you're a business owner, you could be the single point of failure. It could be a key person in your operation. If ask the question, all right, if fill in the blank is out suddenly, does everything shut down? Or what shuts down? And if the answer is everything shuts down when Steve is not in the office, then Steve is a single point of failure. Think about single points of failure that are pieces of technology, software that you're using. It could be a computer. Your personal computer, your laptop, or your phone could be a single point of failure. If you drop your phone in the toilet and you lose everything, then and you have no way to continue business, your phone is a single point of failure. Also think about your supply chain, suppliers, subcontractors, delivery services, anybody that you are solely dependent on is a single point of failure. Any piece of equipment that goes down and as a result shuts down your business and you can't make money, that's a single point of failure. So remember this saying. I picked this up from a Navy SEAL somewhere, and he said, 2 is 1, 1 is none. 2 is 1, 1 is none. So in a combat situation, when Navy SEALs go into combat, they have contingency plans. They think 2 is 1, 1 is none. If they go into combat with one of something, one single point of failure, they assume it's going to go bad. They assume it's going to break down, and that's why they say 1 is none. So 2 is 1, 1 is none. So where do you start with business continuity planning? This can seem a little overwhelming. What you don't want to do is just put your head in the sand and say, you know what, everything has worked for the last 18 months or the last 18 years. Well, good. I'm glad. But if you want to be able to survive some sort of short-term crisis or prevent an extinction level crisis or event, then you need to have a plan, right? So here's how I recommend. How do you get started? Here's how you get started with business continuity planning. First of all, understand that not all of the risks are equal. If you understand the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle that says 80% of your risks will come from 20% of your sources. You know, a flat tire is a risk, but you don't need to spend a whole lot of time planning for a flat tire. I would spend more time on something that has a higher impact. So just because something is more likely to happen doesn't mean that you should focus on it. So likelihood, actually impact is more important than likelihood. So let's look at the big impact, the big single points of failure that are extinction level events. Do an 80-20 analysis and ask, all right, what are the biggest risks to my business? What are the single points of failure? People, technology, equipment, supply chain, etc. Identify the biggest risks to your business. Then number 2 would be to ask the question, how can we prevent it? What are some controls we can put in place? What are some systems we can put in place to prevent this thing from happening? So for example, power outage. If you determine that an ice storm or some sort of power outage to your office is a big point of failure, then you ask the question, how do we prevent this? Well, one answer could be buying a UPS system, an uninterrupted power supply, or putting an emergency generator in. That's how you can prevent a power outage. That's something you can control. So, number 1, identify the biggest impact. Number 2, ask the question, how can we prevent this from happening? Number 3, how do we respond when it does happen? What do we do in case this happens? In the case of a power outage, if you don't go with an emergency generator, for example, then the response could be everybody's going to work from home. That's the plan. Or we're all going to meet up at a particular location that has power. Maybe it's a hotel or some other location where you can work, and the response is we're going to rent a meeting room or we're going to rent a hotel room that is operational and has internet, and that's where we're going to work that day. That's how you respond. But come up with a response plan. Step number 4 is to train and practice. If you went to a school as a child, chances are you practiced and trained for a couple of risks. We had tornado drills. We had fire drills. Unfortunately, nowadays, my kids in school have active shooter drills. So when something happens is not the time to figure out what you're going to do. So train your people and then actually practice it. Practice these situations. Drill. Again, when something bad happens should not be the first time you try out your response plan. Okay? And then step number 5 is to inspect these things. Do regular inspections. Inspect your processes. Inspect your controls. If it's really important to you, then you should be inspecting it on a regular basis, or someone should be inspecting these things. If it's important to business continuity, somebody should be looking at it. Just like you're doing routine maintenance on your key equipment and vehicles, you need to be looking at your processes and systems and your business continuity plan on a regular basis. Let's look at our financial controls. Let's check in with our key trade partners and see how things are doing. Check in with their suppliers. Check in with your suppliers, but check on these things and inspect. So 5 steps to get started. Number 1, identify your biggest impacts. Do the 80-20 analysis. Number 2, ask the question, how can we prevent this single point of failure? Number 3, how do we respond if it does happen? Number 4, train and practice. Number 5, inspect. Inspect those processes. So if you need help with your business continuity planning, there are people out there who specialize in this sort of stuff. If you need help putting systems and processes in place for your construction business, then I've got something I want to get in your hands. It is my free training video series, this how to systematize your construction business. You can get those videos if they're available right now at constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. If they're not available right now, then you can put your name on the wait list and I'll send those to you when they are available. A couple of reminders: if you want to clean up and have a good, organized, searchable record of all your communications on your projects, then make sure and go to fieldchat.com/edge. If you want to learn the secrets of successful contractors, understand what this hidden cost is that could be hammering your bottom line, find out how you can grow your business without hiring more people, find out how you can grow your business like other businesses are doing it, then go get your free videos at constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/secrets. And if you want to get on the phone with me and talk about your business, talk about some of the profit bleeds in your business, get to the root cause of your problems, and then start to map out a plan to go forward, then you can set up a free call with me at constructionleadingedge.com. Go to my homepage there. There's a red button that says schedule your free call. And if you're a business owner, take advantage of that offer. And as always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews and the feedback. If you could take a moment, if you get value out of this podcast, leave a rating and a review. Maybe share it with somebody who you think would get value out of it. I would appreciate it. And I thank you for listening to the podcast, and I will see you next time.